Last video I talked about the first season of Mobile Suit Gundam 00 and how I think it's a very well done standalone series with good action, music, and mech design, but a pretty, at times, convoluted plot. At the end of the day, I actually appreciated the complexity of the characters and factions, though I admit the amount of players in the first season can be a little overwhelming and causes a ton of plot threads to all be occurring simultaneously. If this was a complaint that you might have had in the first 25 episodes, then I can happily tell you that Season 2 tells a much more structured story that feels very at home with all of the usual Gundam tropes. Specifically, Season 2 of 00 takes some things from Zeta and Double Zeta and sprinkles them into the world, and of course, since Zeta is my all-time favorite Gundam series, I can't really say that's a bad thing. Season 2 aired in October of 2008, only 6 months after the first season concluded. Man, I couldn't imagine what it was like waiting to see what happened after the cliffhanger. As I'm writing this script, G-Witch is just about to start airing its second season, and that wait has been bad enough. Once again, following the exploits of Celestial Being, Season 2 shows us a more focused fight against a more organized enemy. Celestial Being has to actually make alliances, and the focus on battlefield tactics is just as important, if not more so, than in Season 1, which is something that I really appreciate. The stakes are also much higher now, as the world's powers have easy access to pseudo-solar generators, and their mobile suits are much closer in power to the series' Gundams. Ultimately, Season 2 of Gundam 00 tells a simpler story with better pacing in my opinion, and that is all mostly due to the groundwork laid by Season 1. As such, I won't be really covering any of that stuff or really talking about the characters' backstories just for the sake of time. So if you haven't seen the video covering the first season of 00 Gundam, you should probably go and check that out now. Otherwise, stick around because Season 2 of Gundam 00... Oh no, someone's gonna kill me. Otherwise, stick around because Season 2 of Gundam 00 is quite a wild ride. Four years have passed since the final battle between Celestial Being and the United Nations Joint Anti-Gundam Task Force. The world at large has become united under a single banner, but perhaps not in the way that our leads would have thought. After Celestial Being's defeat, the three major economic blocs and UN combined to create the good old Earthsphere Federation. Not only does the new Federation have its own regular army, but the threat of Celestial Being and the outbreak of terror attacks that occurred during Season 1 brings about the creation of the Federation's autonomous peacekeeping force, known as Alaws. Now, the Alaws are pretty bad news, and while they're technically part of the Federation, their command structure is completely separate, and their operations are all totally independent. And let me ask, would you trust a highly militarized force using the world's best technology that really only answers to a green-haired femboy? Yeah, it turns out that being the most powerful group on the planet and having no accountability leads directly to some really bad stuff. Besides the normal enemy faction trope of being a bunch of dicks, the Alaws are seen doing stuff like accusing people of being terrorists with no proof, and then kidnapping them and forcing them into slave labor. And that's one of the more mundane evil things that they do. Just wait until we get to the inevitable giant space laser. While the Alaws are similar to the counter-terrorist group the Titans from Zeta Gundam, here it's seen that the Alaws keep their dirty deeds under wraps from the public. You know, so that people don't get all up in arms about that giant private army thing. The first real taste of the Alaws' tyranny that we get is when they arrest a coworker of our old friend from Season 1, Saji Crossroad, and while they're at it, they throw Saji in the slammer as well. In this age, all it takes is an Alaws officer pointing at you and telling you that you're a terrorist with no proof, and you get a one-way trip to the forced labor asteroid. And by the way, they force the prisoners to do physical labor in heavy gravity, so you know they're really mean. Luckily for Saji, he isn't in custody for long, as he's saved by returning Gundam Meister Setsuna F. Seiei and his heavily damaged Gundam Exia. The Exia looks so cool in the opening episodes, by the way, with its damaged head and missing arm. We also get a good look at the Alaws mobile suits, the Jinx 3, and its admittedly really cool gun lance. At this point, the Federation's tech has advanced far enough that the Gundams, which were incredibly powerful in Season 1, are almost on par with the Alaws machines, especially with the Exia being in a state of disrepair. It's a pretty different dynamic to the status quo in Season 1, and one that I like because it helps to ratchet up the stakes. Until the 00 Gundam shows up, but we'll get to that. Things look bad for Saji and Setsuna, but luckily Tieria Erde and his brand new Sarah V Gundam shows up and saves their skin. They leave the battlefield with Tieria escorting them to the Ptolemy II, a new celestial being ship being crewed by some familiar faces. Aboard the ship are Felt, a somehow not blown to smithereens Lassie, and a new character Melania Vashti, daughter of the ship's chief mechanic Ian. The crew hasn't been idle for the past 4 years. Not only do they have the new Ptolemy, but they also have a new Gundam with a high-performance engine that takes 2 GN drives instead of 1. Known as the GN-0000 Gundam, or the 00 Gundam for short, this thing is incredibly powerful, but so far no combination of older GN drives are a good enough match to power the systems and keep them stable, and they hope the Exia's old drive will work. Setsuna and Tieria can't start a war against the Alaws alone, so they start assembling the team once more. Back in Season 1, Lock-On Stratus was one of my favorite characters, and his sacrifice at the end of that season was absolutely pivotal to the character development of both Tieria and Setsuna. So when I say that in Season 2 they replace Neil with his identical twin brother Lyle, who looks exactly the same and is played by the same actor, I understand why the gut reaction is an audible groan. It's a trope for a reason, and perhaps the only thing worse that you could do besides have an evil clone show up. Luckily, Gundam 00 put actual effort into differentiating the two Delandi brothers, and they have distinct personalities and mannerisms. Where Neil was generally pretty upbeat and outgoing, Lyle is more reserved and unsure of his own abilities. In Season 1, Lock-On Stratus was looked at as one of the most reliable members of Celestial Being, and in Season 2 he's an outsider that's trying to live up to the legacy of his brother, while also having his own motivation as a member of the rebel group Catharon at the same time. He even keeps this completely secret from the rest of Celestial Being for quite some time, and you never quite know what Lyle is thinking when it comes to other members of the team. So yeah, the worst possible thing you could have done for that character, done as well as possible. I just wish he had had a different hairstyle or something at least. Next up is the group's tactical forecaster, Sumeragi Lee Noriega, who fell into a deep bout of alcoholism between the 2 seasons and has been shacking up with her old buddy Billy Katagiri. Yes, the same Billy who is a military technician for the Federation. Setsuna shows up and immediately outs her as a member of Celestial Being, giving her basically no choice than to come with him, and this revelation messes up Billy for the rest of the season too. Sumeragi is a powerful motivator, I guess, even when it takes her a few episodes to get back into her groove. Like I said during the Season 1 review, I think Sumeragi has like the most human story out of anyone on the ship, and I commend the writers for adding in her rock bottom moment. It makes sense, and her needing something to fight for leads to her rivalry with Federation tactical forecaster Cady Monaghan, which leads to some of the biggest bright spots in the series for me. Some incredibly good mech action and ship versus ship battles. Setsuna shows off the 00's twin drive capabilities in a battle with the Alaws, and we see that our antagonist in the shadows, Ribbons Allmark, is quite mad that he didn't know anything about the twin drive, even though he has full control of the supercomputer Veda. Wong Lu Mei tells Celestial Being that Alleluia Haptism is being held prisoner by the Federation, and yes, Lu Mei is still a double-crosser and hanging out with Nina Trinity. I didn't really talk about it all that much in the first video, but to sum her up, she's basically a celestial being operative with an expansive spy network that sends the main group info throughout the series. However, she's mostly interested in herself and furthering her goal of forcing the world to change no matter the road that's taken to get there. This leads her to exist in this gray zone between celestial being and the antagonistic Innovators, trying to suss out which side will come out on top. That's a fine character choice and one that can be done super well. In my opinion, I think that Lu Mei's motivation is incredibly lame, and I'll go into detail on that as her part in the story plays out. Alleluia is being held in a former Human Reform League facility, and with the only half-drunk Sumeragi at the helm of the Ptolemy, they come up with a plan to bust the pilot out. The plan is to use the ship to dive into the water, which will make a big splash and increase the humidity, causing the beam weapons to be less effective. Scientifically sound or not, it's a really cool idea, and I love that Gundam 00 tends to put the Ptolemy right into the action in the second season. Multiple times throughout these 25 episodes, we'll see the ship become an integral part of the plan, and it makes the action feel very high stakes. Setsuna breaks Alleluia out of prison and away from the clutches of the super soldier Soma Pires, and Alleluia gets his newly upgraded Gundam Arios. By sheer coincidence, it would happen that the Princess Marina Ishmael is also being held in the very same prison, so Setsuna rescues her as well. Her home country of Azatistan was taken over by the Federation, and she was arrested after the death of the religious leader Rasa Mahmadi. Unfortunately, she spends most of this season kind of not doing anything. Marina is a really weird character. She has this goal in season 2 of protecting these war orphans and going back to Azatistan. She does write a song with the orphans that is kind of important halfway through season 2, but overall it kind of feels like the writers didn't have much to do with her character after season 1. Now, our 4 Gundam Meisters have been assembled and we have the mid-series upgrades to all of their mobile suits as well. The 00 gets the most screen time and is the most advanced suit out of the bunch, what with its brand new twin drive and later on its 00 riser attachment system that really turns the mech into a beast. I genuinely like how the twin drives are placed on its shoulders as well. It gives the 00 a really distinct profile when put up against the other machines. Lock-on's Cherubim Gundam is quite similar to the Dynamis from Season 1 and fulfills a similar role. However, Lyle isn't quite as good a sniper as his brother, and he incorporates a more mid-range fighting style in a lot of episodes. While Lock-on is still the team's designated sniper, I'll never say no to some beam magnum action. Also, the Cherubim has shield bits that can deploy for added defense, and in the second half of Season 2, those things get a ton of mileage. Tieria returns with another decked out Gundam that is very, very wide. I kinda love the design of both the new Cerevi Gundam and the Virtue from Season 1. It's probably the same reason I love the Unit 2 from Stardust Memory. Cerevi has big cannons on it, and it can usually be seen firing giant lasers. However, it also has an extra big Gundam head on its back, and can shed its armor to reveal the sleek as hell Seraphim Gundam, which is a machine that can activate a trial system that essentially disables all machines connected to the Veda supercomputer. Essentially, it's an anti-Gundam Gundam. Finally is Alleluia and his Gundam Arios, another orange transforming suit that looks like the Methis' edgy cousin. Honestly, the Arios is pretty cool. I think it falls by the wayside just because it's piloted by the Gundam Meister with the least amount of connection to the overall story. I do like that the Arios can just ram other suits, and the fact that it's a lightweight Gundam built for quick hit-and-run tactics is a pretty cool idea. Alleluia himself gets a bit more backstory as it's revealed that he knew Soma while they were kids in the Super Soldier program. It's sort of nightmarish for her too, as she can only communicate with Alleluia through quantum brainwaves, and all her other senses are cut off. Alleluia refers to Soma as Marie Parfasy, and later on we learn that the personality of Soma Pires was implanted into her as a sort of remedy to unblock all of her senses. Celestial Being decides to drop off their baggage, Saji and Marina, at the Catharon base so that they can start taking the fight to the Alaws. Unfortunately for everybody involved in that, Saji has not yet learned that this is a Gundam plot, and he can't simply wash his hands of the situation. So he flees from the Catharon base and is pretty much immediately captured by a Federation ship. Luckily, Smirnov is the captain here, and he's actually an alright guy, so he hates the Alaws and the way that they do things. But to illustrate just how much reach the Alaws have in the Fedi government, someone leaks the location of the Catharon base after catching wind of Saji, even though Smirnov was just going to let him go. The Alaws attack the rebel base by using unmanned drones that sweep the facility and kill everyone whether they're armed or not. Celestial Being is able to make it to the base, but by the time they get there, most of the damage is done, and Catharon's base is destroyed with only a small amount of personnel surviving. Saji is let go by the Colonel and is forced to see the consequences of his actions, and while he doesn't come around to seeing the world for what it truly is quite yet, this moment sets him down the path to changing and becoming a better person. Setsuna tries to take Marina back to Zadistan, but he can't use the 00 because it needs to take a nap after using Transam before the twin drive has reached full functionality. So instead they take this little shuttle, which doesn't serve them well when Ali is just chilling there in the middle of a burning city waiting for them. But after that, the show cuts away and they're fine, so it was nice of Ali to not kill them. Gundam 00 actually does that a few times this season. There will be a situation or a big explosion, and then the show cuts away only to cut back with the situation being either resolved or in a different state. It's kind of weird. By now we see that Soma has been transferred into the Alaws and is serving alongside Louise, as well as Andrei Smirnov, Colonel Smirnov's son. More on Andrei later. Along with the other Alaws is the totally not Graham Acre Mr. Bushido, a gruff-voiced badass guy that wears a mask and mostly tells everyone else to fuck off. Seriously, in this season, Graham wants to fight the Gundams and do nothing else. That is his only motivation. So while he's with the main group of Alaws that Season 2 follows, he only takes part in a few battles and mostly bides his time until he can fight Setsuna. While Celestial Being covers Catharon evacuating their base, a large battle between them and the Alaws breaks out, and Alleluia becomes embroiled in a fight against Soma. Alleluia has to come to terms with the fact that he wants to save her, and so he keeps calling her Marie in an attempt to reach that part that might remember him. Eventually he's able to crack through her shell, and the memories that Soma had as Marie come flooding back, causing her to freak out and then pass out after trying to fistfight him. Both Soma and Alleluia go careening off of the battlefield and out of range of the radar. The first person to find them is Colonel Smirnov, who's basically Soma's adoptive father at this point. At first he thinks about shooting Alleluia, but after talking with the newly revived Marie, he decides to let both of them go and report that Soma Pires died in the battle. He then tells Alleluia to keep Soma out of the fighting. How fatherly of him. After the battle, Tierra meets a strange man named Regene Regetta, who reveals himself to be an innovator, a being that has an extended lifespan using nanomachines and quantum brainwaves that are meant to lead humans into a new age of space colonization. Tierra is confused that he was never told the plan, and is told that Veda kept it secret from him. Tierra's disconnection from Veda is a pretty pivotal moment for his character, along with the death of the first lock-on Stratos. So when Tierra and Setsuna infiltrate a Federation party full of a bunch of bigwigs, it's intriguing when Tierra finally meets Ribbons, and the first thing Ribbons does is offer to give Tierra back his link to Veda. The fact that Tierra tries to kill Ribbons instead says a lot about how far he's come since his introduction as the holier-than-thou Gundam Meister with trust issues. Also, yes, Tierra is dressed as a woman to infiltrate the party, and yes, he is very attractive. Setsuna meets Louise at the party, and at first she just nicely talks about Saji, but she starts having a reaction and has to take a bunch of pills, and then when Billy Katagiri shows up to help her, he recognizes Setsuna and all hell breaks loose. Setsuna and Tieria are confronted by Ali and an approved Gundam throne unit as they flee the party, but he can't stand up to all 4 of the Meisters and flees as soon as backup arrives. Celestial Being decides that the heat is a bit too much on Earth and they have to head back to space, causing a battle that reveals that Caddy Mannequin of the Alaws knows who Sumeragi is, and Homer Katagiri, the commander-in-chief of the autonomous force, has to ask the Innovators for more help. The Ptolemy reaches the Celestial Being base located at Lagrange Point 3 and receives some new hardware. Most importantly is the O-Riser for the 00 Gundam, which is like a jetpack that attaches to the back of it and provides it with weapons and sensors. It also requires its own pilot, and that gives Saji something to actually do on the Ptolemy until they just have Haro pilot it later. Lasse probably would have been a better choice, but he's still coughing up blood from GN radiation, so this kind of forces Saji to wake up and have to actually do something, even if he's only helping pilot to save Louise. The Gundam Arios gets its own support unit called the GN Archer or Gun Archer, and I actually really like this suit when it's in mech mode. It's kind of cute. While it can act as a support unit for Arios, it can act independently as well, and when Soma is forced to finally pilot again, it's a neat suit to see take part in the action. One thing that I love seeing in this section of the story is the populated Celestial Being base. It makes sense that the organization is quite large behind the scenes. They have to have engineers that can build and upgrade the Gundams and the ships that they use. In Season 1, we pretty much never see them at all, so it's cool to finally see the true scope of what Celestial Being was. One person that was at this base is a weirdo named A New Returner, who says she was scouted by Lu Mei for the Ptolemy crew. Yeah, I don't know how they don't guess she's an innovator. I guess they don't really know what the innovators would look like yet, but come on. More innovator characters are also introduced at this point, working under ribbons, and they have some of the best Gundam names ever. There's Revive Revival, Hilling Care, and a guy who's my personal favorite name of all time, Bring Stabity. Federation is big mad at this country in the Middle East called Sweel, which is said to be the most powerful country in that region. We see from Klaus's perspective that the leaders of Catharon are meeting with Sweel's king and are planning to use some of the information from the monarchy to expose the truth of the mass killings the Outlaws are doing to the public. Well, the Outlaws, and by extension the Innovators, don't really care about covering up mass killings because they use a giant space laser called the Memento Mori system that's mounted on the orbital ring. They immediately use it to destroy the capital of the Kingdom of Sweel, and I really don't know how you cover that up, even though the military tries to. Yeah, the whole city's gone, but don't worry about it, kid. You didn't see shit. They tell Smirnov that he can't talk about the laser to anyone, and all his men are sworn to secrecy. But being at ground zero of the very first orbital laser strike sounds like something that's really hard to keep quiet about. As soon as they hear about the attack, Celestial Being decides to destroy the laser. Tieria shares all he knows about the Innovators with everyone, and Setsuna's response is basically, "I'm gonna kill him." Meanwhile, Catharon is pretty pissed off that some of their leadership was killed, so they decide to assault the Memento Mori with their entire space force as well. Just as Celestial Being is leaving their hidden base, they come under attack by the Alaws, led by Caddy Mannequin. The Gundams have to defend the transports and Ptolemy while they escape the base, and this is when Saji finds a wounded Ian in the hangar and takes the new O-Razor to Setsuna. The 00 Riser is so cool when we finally get to see it in all its glory. The captain of Louise's Alaws squad gets taken down with ease, and I love that Setsuna is all, "We will destroy them," while Saji is getting fucking whiplash in the secondary cockpit. Setsuna is pressed by the arrival of an Innovator pilot, and when he uses the 00 Razor's Trans Am, we get into the true new type magic of Mobile Suit Gundam 00. Everyone near Setsuna is given this vision of themselves in this ethereal realm where they can all sense each other's feelings, and it's illegal to wear clothing. This means that Louise now knows that Saji is helping pilot a Celestial Being suit, and Louise is one of the Outlaws. While the battle still rages on, Setsuna uses the Trans Am mode to kick the hell out of everyone. He almost gets stabbed by Revive, but the 00 Razor has the ability to basically teleport through a method called quantizing. This is so surprising to Ribbons that he slaps the shit out of Lu Mei and calls her a greedy bitch, knowing that she's basically a double dealer. The Outlaws waste no time in firing the Memento Mori again, this time destroying a military base and refugee center in the country of Kelia. This is the final straw with Celestial Being, and they attack the big laser in one of the best battles in the entire series. I really love how the Ptolemy is central to the plan, and how they use the orbital ring to close the distance with the laser itself. Also, the Ptolemy itself can use Trans-Am when the Gundams are hooked up inside of it, which is just another reason to love the Celestial Being ship. They blow up the laser cannon in a heroic moment, but they don't have much time to celebrate because they have to head to the rendezvous point to meet up with Setsuna. Unfortunately, all that's at the point when Setsuna arrives is debris, and Nana Trinity, who tells him that the Ptolemy was ambushed and fled to Earth. Ian wakes up in the Ptolemy's medbay, and there's a really great camera transition to show the outside of the damaged ship. The Ptolemy comes under attack by a couple of weirdos, but Tieria is able to fight them off. In fact, he straight up kills Bring Stabity. Poor guy was hardly around at all. Setsuna is led to his home country of Krugis, where he finally meets Ribbons. He learns that Ribbons was the one who piloted the O Gundam that he saw as a child, and he was spared by Ribbons and then recruited into Celestial Being eventually. Ribbons tells Setsuna that the Innovators are the inheritors of Shenberg's plan, and that he needs the 00 Razor back. And when Setsuna refuses, Ali shoots him in the shoulder, and the two get into a Gundam-on-Gundam deathmatch. Ali resorts to threatening to blow up a Catharon transport ship, but Setsuna uses the 00 Razor's quantizing teleportation to beat his ass. Setsuna is about to kill Ali, but at that moment a song rings out across the battlefield. Marina has been with Catharon all this time, committing herself to taking care of the orphans and forging her own way to find peace. Due to the effect of the 00 Razor's Trans-Am twin drive, everyone on the battlefield can hear the song, and Ali takes the opportunity to eject in the core fighter and escape. Setsuna goes to the Catharon base and passes out from his wound. Up in space, Celestial Being is attacked by a huge force of Alaws, backed up by their ace Innovator pilots. This attack is probably the most pressed that Celestial Being has been in the entire second season, as all the pilots go all out to defend the Ptolemy from an overwhelming force. Just when things seem like they're hopeless, Monacan gets orders from Alaws HQ to call off the attack, as a faction from the regular Federation army has begun an armed coup and has taken over the orbital station of the African space elevator. The coup is led by a man named Pang Hercury, close personal friend of Colonel Smirnov, and a man who believes that in order to open the world's eyes to the evils of the Outlaws, he's gonna have to put them through some pain, which is why he takes 60,000 people hostage inside of the orbital elevator. Smirnov is sent up the elevator as a messenger to Hercury from the Federation. He tells them that the Federation will never give in to any of their demands and to just give up. However, when the Outlaws decide to target the space elevator itself with a second Memento Mori, we realize that Smirnov was probably sent up there to die. He wasn't really coming to terms with the new hierarchy of the military. I really get the feeling that he was just sent up there so that they could get rid of him. While the Alaws having a second Memento Mori is kind of cheap, especially after the 5-episode arc to get rid of the last one, them targeting the space elevator is a major turning point in the show. Amazingly, everyone on the ground comes together to defend the populated areas from the falling debris, but a huge chunk of the African continent is damaged. Smirnov escapes the elevator with Hercury, but when his son Andre sees him, he immediately thinks he was part of the coup and then kills him without even giving him a chance to explain what's going on. We then get a 4-month time skip, as the world deals with the near destruction of one of the elevators and the fallout of a military coup. The event is referred to as mega terrorism, which is scary but also kind of funny. Marie has slipped back into her Soma personality, mostly because of seeing Colonel Smirnov blow up right in front of her. And man, she kind of kicks ass piloting the GN Archer. Celestial Being attacks the second Memento Mori out in space, and we discover that Setsuna is still suffering from that bullet wound. Ali seems to have shot him with a GN particle-infused bullet of some sort, and the radiation is spreading throughout his body, but at a very slow rate, as if something was suppressing it. Something similar is happening to Lasse, but on a much lower scale. The Meisters come to the decision that they have to recapture Veda from the Innovators, though they have no idea where Veda is truly located. They also mention that in the past 4 months, they've been attacked by the Alaws 20 times, so they believe that the Innovators must know their location somehow. Immediately jump cut to Lock-On getting down and dirty with Anu, who has a quantum brainwave eye flash, which definitely isn't suspicious at all. Saji has a conversation with Setsuna and asks if he's going to shoot down Louise, and Setsuna can only reply with, "Well, that's up to you." Setsuna is determined to help Saji save Louise though, and when you compare how much Setsuna has grown since the start of Season 1, it's actually quite a lot of character growth. The Meisters get ready to launch as they plan to capture an Innovator pilot to get info on Veda. As the camera shows Tieria and Setsuna, they say Veda and Gundam respectively, and it made me laugh so hard when I first saw it, I almost fell out of my chair. As we get into this huge battle between the Alaws and Celestial Being, I want to take a second to mention how awesome the music and general soundscape of Gundam 00 is. Both seasons have a fully orchestrated soundtrack that wouldn't sound out of place in a big budget movie. And the fact that many of the tracks contain vocal arrangements of chanting and other things, well, it all just sort of goes really well with the overall religious themes of Gundam 00. I missed the opportunity to talk about the openings of Season 1 in that video, but let me say that Gundam 00 has 4 great openings that are all super memorable. The first opening, Daybreak's Bell, is perfectly fitting for the first arc, and Ash Like Snow perfectly complements the dour state of Celestial Being in the second half. As for Season 2, I think both openings are fine, but overall Season 1 just had some really great and memorable songs. Ribbons is pretty mad that Setsuna and the 00 Razor are on the battlefield, but he wonders if them surviving the GN bullet is proof that Setsuna is showing signs of going through a change. Ooh, how ominous. They use the Trans Am to try and talk to Louise, but Saji can't get through to her, and she says that she's with the Alaws to change the world. This causes Saji to have a moment of doubt. Luckily, Tieria is able to catch Revival during the battle and bring them back to the ship. Celestial Being questions Revive on the Ptolemy, but suddenly Anu starts steering them off course, and then announces that she is an Innovator and shoots Lasse in the stomach. Man, that guy really cannot catch a break. Anu and Revive escape, with Revive stealing the O-Riser. Anu is supposed to steal the 00 Gundam, but is unsuccessful, and they end up having to escape from Setsuna and Lock-On in a small shuttle. While the 2 Innovators aren't successful in stealing the twin drive-enabled Gundam for Ribbons, they do shoot up the O-Riser cockpit to disable it for a time. After a short amount of downtime, the Innovators launch another attack on Celestial Being. Anu fights with Lock-On until he convinces her to come back to the Ptolemy. Unfortunately, Anu pretty much can be controlled by Ribbons via quantum brainwaves, and she tries to kill Lock-On at the last moment, only for Setsuna to take her out before she can. The Ptolemy gets an emergency transmission from a wounded Lu Mei with mysterious coordinates that they have to follow. While Lu Mei has been playing both sides this entire time, she isn't especially good at it. Ribbons calls her useless and slaps her around, and Nana Trinity eventually betrays her for working with Ali and the Innovators. When Lu Mei realizes that she'll be disposed of by Ribbons, she decides to give the coordinates of Veda to Celestial Being. How does she get these coordinates? She receives them from Regene Regetta because nobody really likes being pushed around by Ribbons all that much. Anyway, Nana blows up Lu Mei's ship, and she lives somehow and goes to meet Setsuna to give him coordinates in person. We learn that the reason that Lu Mei wants the world to change is because her older brother, Hong Long, was too beta to be the head of the family, so she had to do it. She doesn't go into a ton of detail about what that means, but I find it really hard to sympathize with her when she's like a young, wealthy, beautiful socialite, and other characters literally were child soldiers, so sorry, you get like 0 sympathy from me, Lu Mei. Setsuna finally gets the coordinates to Veda, but he can't leave before Graham shows up for his final showdown. Both suits are able to use Transam, but Setsuna can teleport and also use that quantum brainwave field to talk to his opponents. Setsuna gets the best out of Graham, who realizes that he can't beat the Gundam Meister and offers his life, but Setsuna isn't interested in killing him and takes off. See you in the movie, Graham. Thanks for showing up. Nana finally snaps and kills Lu Mei, but her celebration is short-lived because Louise and her brand new mobile armor come and destroy her. Louise finally has her revenge, but afterwards is left wondering if she did the right thing, since now she basically has nothing. Celestial Being scans the coordinates from Lu Mei, and they find that Veda's core is on a huge mothership located on the dark side of the moon. That big room with Shenberg's body in it that was inside the moon last season? Yeah, I guess that was just a terminal, and now they know where the true core is. Celestial Being aren't the only ones that want to take out Ribbons and the Innovators, so Catharon and the coup forces, led by Monacan, also join the final battle. Celestial Being also receives a bunch of stuff from a supply ship, including the O Gundam, which is pretty cool because it's basically just the RX-78. The Alaws attack the Ptolemy one final time, but they do pretty terrible against the combined might of Celestial Being and Catharon. And Setsuna finally kills Goodman, the blonde-haired annoying general of the Alaws. Regene has had just about enough of Ribbon's shit at this point and just shoots him in the head. Unfortunately, Ribbons pulls some wise man stuff, watch the Vodums video if you haven't, and is fully linked to Veda, so he just transfers his consciousness into another body. Ali then kills Regene because he likes being a good little boy for Ribbons. The battle outside is interrupted by a giant laser, and the Celestial Being mothership is finally unveiled, as its optical camo is disengaged. A huge colony-class spaceship with tons of exterior defenses and an army of mass-produced innovators in mobile suits that just ram into things and explode. I feel like that isn't the best way to utilize all of these mobile suits that you've just built, but alright. Also, all these suits can use Transam because Billy Katagiri is working directly for Ribbons. We see this when the Ptolemy crash lands in the mothership's hangar, and Billy boards them with a bunch of those autonomous drones. Billy Bootlicker says he would rather serve the Innovators because they're meant to lead us into a new era and yada yada, but really he's just mad that Sumeragi friend-zoned him and gives up fairly easily. Tieria fights Care and Revive and gets the Seraph Gundam pretty badly damaged. They realize that he snuck out of the cockpit and has made his way inside of Veda's core. He confronts Ribbons and tells him that they're not Innovators, they're something called Innovades. Their true purpose is to help humanity become the true Innovators, but Ribbons has a god complex and says he is something far beyond that of a true Innovator. Then Ribbons shoots Tieria a bunch of times, including between the eyes. The battle outside is grinding to a standstill as the Innovator Kamikaze squad are holding everyone back. Setsuna pulls Louise out of the mobile armor cockpit, and Saji takes her back to the Ptolemy airlock. When Louise wakes up, she freaks out and starts choking him, but comes to her senses when she sees the ring from Season 1 around his neck, and it's revealed that she wears the paired ring as well. Setsuna activates a huge GN field that envelops everyone taking part in the battle. And then they can hear the voice of Regene, who tells them that a true Innovator using the Twin Drive has the ability to expand everyone's consciousness. Now everyone can hear the thoughts of those they're fighting. This allows Setsuna to make it to Veda, and the supercomputer itself rejects Ribbon's links, revealing that Regene and Tieria's consciousness live on inside of it. Tieria uses his link to reform the Seraphim Gundam, and enables its trial mode that disables the link to Veda from all the surrounding suits. Lock-On has a final showdown with Ali, who almost gets the better of him, but in the end Lyle is able to take vengeance for his family in both an awesome mech battle and one-on-one with the terrorist. Setsuna makes it into Veda's core and finds the corpse of his friend, but is reassured by the disembodied Tieria. He's then told the full scope of the Shenberg plan. The Innovades were meant to help humanity get to the point where pure-blood Innovators like Setsuna would just naturally start showing up among the population. Innovators would be able to unite the world to a new era of understanding one another, and using the colony ship Celestial Being, they would be able to eventually make contact with extraterrestrial life and have the dialogues that are to come. Setsuna leaves the ship and has a final showdown with Ribbons in his Reborn's cannon, which I definitely thought was a cool design, if not a little lame for a final antagonist suit. But then it transforms into the true Reborn's Gundam, and I got my wish because this thing's really cool. With Lock-On and Alleluia backing him up and a suit that can pull off teleportation, it's not long until the Reborn's Gundam is reduced to scrap, though he takes out Arios and Cheridim, and the 00 Gundam ends up in a huge explosion. This only serves to ratchet up the cool factor though, as Setsuna pilots a repaired Gundam Exia against Ribbons in his original O Gundam. The two suits duke it out with Setsuna coming out on top, destroying the O Gundam on the surface of the moon. With Ribbons dead, Tieria promises to keep watching over Celestial Being as he joins with Veda and completes his Jesus character arc. The Federation reforms and disbands the Alaws, making sure to welcome the smaller nations into their ranks. Monacan becomes a Federation general and notes that Celestial Being is still out there and still considered a terrorist organization. Then she gets married to Patrick, who really must be the luckiest dude in the world. The outcome of both seasons of Gundam 00 seems incredibly bright and hopeful, and the show leaves us with one final message. The childhood of humanity comes to a close. Which, that's a bit ominous, if I do say so myself. Mobile Suit Gundam 00's second season was a beautifully animated and well-paced adventure through a more standard Gundam setting. While I appreciated the fact that I didn't have to follow 5 different factions and their intercontinental politics, I do feel like a little of the magic from Season 1 was lost. And of course, the story eventually heavily involves new type style innovator magic, so if you don't like the part of Gundam that gets a little bit more metaphysical, well, that's how this one ends. Overall though, I still think that Mobile Suit Gundam 00 is an A-tier show, and I think I would put it at the top of the non-Universal Century Gundam stuff. I think that one of its best qualities is that it's a really good introduction to the franchise for new Gundam viewers, as it handles politics and mecha action hand in hand. It's also just beautifully animated and scored with a soundtrack that wouldn't be out of place in a big budget motion picture, so even if you're not super into the mech stuff, you can kind of just watch it and drool. The mech designs are all really great and mostly avoid retreading older designs with a few exceptions, and everything ends in an explosive finale that's pretty fulfilling, and we still have an entire movie to go through in this world as well. Next on the Gundam Retrospective, we will look at the sequel movie, Awakening of the Trailblazer, where we'll be wrapping up the adventures of Celestial Being. After that, I think I need to take a look at Seed Stargazer because I kind of skipped over it after Destiny, and then we'll be moving on to the ever-popular Gundam Unicorn. On the non-Gundam side of things, I have a project coming in between all those videos that will be looking back on the roots of mecha anime, and could perhaps be the start of a brand new series on the channel. So if any of that sounds good to you, please remember to subscribe, and I will see you again very soon. Hello and welcome to the end card for Mobile Suit Gundam 00 Season 2. What a show that was. I really enjoyed watching both seasons of this show. It's great. I'm happy that the videos are done, and now we get to move on to the movie next time and close out our adventure in the Anno Domini universe of Gundam. So that'll be really fun. Thank you very much to my channel members, aka Batosai, Brian Sanchez, D. Mells, Daniel Johnson, Danky Stank, Swanky Mank, Kanto20, Kill Me Inc., Lord Kagai, Nick Chase, Video Game Player 75, and Yo-Yo Mitch. Thank you guys very much for sticking around and continuing to support the channel in any way that you can. I very much appreciate it. It fills my heart with the feeling opposite of dread when I see that people are a member. Anyway, the reason I feel like this video took way longer than it should have, and it probably is just because I got sick in the middle of writing it. It wasn't like sick like a cold or anything. I got like a really bad migraine that lasted multiple days and made it so I just couldn't sleep. And doing any sort of like creative work, like writing on top of like, living my life and working and stuff and paying rent is very hard when you don't have any sleep. So it took an extra week, but that's okay. Coming up, we do still have the Magic Knight Rayarth video that is in the works. I am watching it right now. I have my super special project that's still under wraps that I want to announce, but I'm gonna hold off. That's coming up. And of course, next week is Awakening of the Trailblazer, which I guess is really mixed opinions on that one because it's kind of weird. So we'll see how I feel about that one. I haven't watched it yet as of this recording, so probably watch it today, actually, or tomorrow, and start writing up the script this weekend. So we'll see. We'll see. I know very little about it. But anyway, thank you guys very much again. If you made it this far, you guys are amazing. You're amazing anyway, even if you didn't make it this far, but don't tell them I said that. And you guys have a great